Hey, how's it going? This is Hellbent and welcome to this tutorial on hotstrings and some related topics. Um, I'm not sure if many of you have had any dealings with hotstrings or are familiar with them at all. When I first started getting into AutoHotkey, one of the first things I came across was hotstrings, and my impression of them at the time was it was pretty useless, and that was because I was just seeing it as a simple um, text replacement. So you type out something and then it replaces it with something else. It wasn't until probably about, I don't know, almost a year ago where I actually was started using hot strings for a script that I was writing where, when I write out code, I write the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to just make a simplified script that would actually allow me to just type out a couple of characters and have it replaced with whatever I needed that I commonly use over and over again. And it was during that time that I ran into a difficulty where I wasn't able to have it replace enough of the characters that I needed to use. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'll try going down a line and actually, send those characters instead. And to my surprise at the time, because I never gone through the documentation of hotstrings, I was actually able to do that. And I was like, well, okay, if I can do that, I wonder what else I can do with hotstrings. And I tested out a bunch of different things, and every single thing that I tried out, it just worked perfectly. And I was like, wow, I'm pretty surprised. I had no idea that hotstrings could be used like this. And to summarize, basically a hotstring can be used virtually the same as any hotkey, with the exception that with hotkeys you're limited to the number of keys that you have on your keyboard and different combinations of pressing Control plus that key and or Shift and that key or the combination of them. But with hotstrings you have probably I don't know, let's say billions. Okay, let's just say millions of different combinations that you can use that will serve virtually the same as a hotkey. And one of the good things about hotstrings is if you make your hotstrings unique, like unique throughout all of your scripts, then you never have to worry about if this hot string has been used by something else, which is a common problem when you're using hotkeys. Like for example, nowadays I commonly use escape or control escape to exit my script. So if I have multiple scripts running, if multiple of them use that same hotkey, then I'll run into the problem where I might close a script that I don't want to. But then if I use other hotkeys, then I have to remember those hotkeys and etc. etc. So hotstrings can, if you come up with a naming system for your hotstrings or a way to access what those hotstrings are, hotstrings can be way more beneficial than all your hotkeys. Now, hotkeys definitely do have an advantage in certain ways. They're simple to use. You don't have to remember any string of characters or whatever. You don't have to type anything out, or you just press one key or a combination of a couple keys. But overall, there's huge advantages to being able to use hotstrings, and I'm going to try to cover a few of those things in this tutorial. I'll probably come back to this topic because there's so many things that you can do with hotstrings, and I don't want to just do it like a tutorial where I'm just saying, okay, if I do this, this happens. I want to actually be able to show you a couple of concepts to be able to actually start automating different kinds of things that you do on a daily basis, that you might do on a daily basis, using different ways of structuring hotkeys and hot strings together. So this is not going to be, I'll begin with the normal way that I would do a tutorial, just going over a couple of the features of it, how to set certain things up, but then I'll go into hopefully I'll be able to go into a little bit more deeper things and concepts that you'll be able to take away from it and actually start creating your own programs that suit your needs for whatever they might be. Okay, so let's start with a basic thing about hotstrings, or what I had discovered with Hotstrings right from when I first started with AutoHotkey, and that's just a simple replacement or string replacement or word replacement. So the basic way that we create a hot string is much the way that we would create a hotkey with colons around it. So let me just type one out. So everyone should be familiar with the term LOL or laugh out loud. So let's say that if I'm typing something on a chat or something like that, rather than me actually typing out laugh out loud, and let's say I don't want to just type out LOL. Let's say I do actually want it to say laugh out loud rather than LOL. What I can do is just create a hot string that says LOL, 2 colons before, 2 colons. Oh, I apparently have my testing open. Okay. LOL, and then 2 colons after it. So this is the basic structure of a hot string, and I'll go over all the characters, the end characters, and etc. in a few minutes, but let's get this out of the way first. So here I have, what I'm saying is that when I type LOL, I want this to be replaced with something else. So I'll replace that with laugh out loud. Okay, so here's a basic example of a simple hot string, and this is my impression for the first year that I had used AutoHotkey. This is what I thought hot strings were all about. Okay, so if I run this script now, wherever I go to type, and if I type in LOL and perhaps a space or enter or tab, etc., what it's going to do is it's going to replace that LOL with actually laugh out loud. Okay, so all I did was I typed out LOL and then a space. And likewise, like I said, I can do LOL enter and it'll do whatever. Okay, so this is the basic, the simplest thing with hot strings. Now, what I said that I had learned later on was that I can actually do much more than this. So let's say, for example, instead of me replacing LOL with laugh out loud, let's say instead what I actually really want it to do is I want it to perhaps run a program. So what I'll do here is I'll create a simple hot string that when I type it, what I really want it to do is run, let's say I want it to run the calculator. And I'll add in a return at the end. I don't think I need in most cases, if you're just going to be using hot strings one after another, you don't usually have to worry about return, because as soon as it encounters the next hot string, it's not going to do anything. But for safety, I usually like to add a return after things, even if they don't need it, just because it's not going to hurt anything. And if it ends up being a case where I actually do need it, then at least it's there. If it's there and it doesn't need to be needed, then no problem. So. Alright, so now if I type out LOL this time, what it's going to do is it's going to run the calculator for me. So I type LOL, hit a space or enter, and boom, I have my calculator available to me. Now, what I would do if this was actually something that I wanted, I would perhaps create a script that has a bunch of these hot strings in it, and I'll come up with a naming convention that applies to the kind of programs that I want to do. So let's say if I have 10 programs that I want to include in this script, I might come up with something. Let's say I'll say at calc. So if I want to run the calculator, I'll type out at calc. If I want to, let me see, if I want to do Chrome, if I want to run the Chrome browser, I might say at, and I can shorten this, I can change it so that way the chances of me actually typing this accidentally, the idea is that I want to make it something that I'm never going to type just through normal typing something in a message board or whatever. So I want to make it something that's, I want to make it easy for me to remember what it is. I don't want to make it too complicated for me to be able to actually use it, but I also want it to make it something that's not going to cause me any issues where when I'm trying to type out something, I'm going to accidentally type this out. And I'll show you some other ways as we go through this at how we can deal with making it a little bit more specific so that way you don't have that problem happening to you. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to run okay, so here now I can create a huge list of different programs that I want to run using this particular script, and I'll just come up with a naming convention that works for those different things. And then whenever I need those programs, this will be hidden away, whatever. I can just type it out wherever. And one of the things that I'll point out right away is you don't actually have to have a surface that you can type on. Like I can go to my desktop and I can start typing things out. And even if I can't actually type in that field, it's still going to let me actually, it's still going to execute this. It's still going to run the program for me. And I'll go into this more as we go through. Okay, so I think I saved this and I ran it. So I'm doing something, I need to use a calculator real quick, so rather than me digging through my computer looking for the calculator, all I have to do is type out at calc, is that right? Yeah, and then, no, oh my bad, at calc, and then there we go, I have my calculator. Oh, I don't need the calculator anymore, I want to run Chrome now. Right, and boom, it opens up Chrome for me. Okay, so this is just a simple example of some of the things that we can do with Hotstrings, or what you can do with Hotstrings. Now I'll go into a little bit of setting up the Hotstring and everything like that. Now, I don't work with my computer, and I don't often have a lot of use for Hotstrings. As I go through and start programming, doing more and more scripts, I find that sometimes they can become beneficial, but day-to-day use or even month-to-month use, I don't use them. So rather than me trying to remember all the different end characters and everything, let's just have a look at some of the documentation. So what we'll go with is we'll take a look at some of the options that we can put into the Hotstrings. And I suggest you get comfortable using the documentation. Now, sometimes if you're like me, a lot of the documentation, when you look at it, your eyes just go blurry, and the characters change to some other language, and you just have no idea what you're looking at, and you can't focus on anything, and it's all Greek, right? If you're like me, that happens a lot. But sometimes some of the documentation is really clear, and it's really easy to understand. And some of these options, they're like that. So let me see. What I was thinking of doing is writing down some of the places where I jump to. But you know what? If you don't want to watch the video, if you don't want to spend 30 seconds while I search for something to point out, then that's up to you. Okay, so the first thing we'll look at is the asterisk. So if I see in this example here, in between the first two colons, they put an asterisk. And what this does is, whereas here I needed to actually, after I typed out at Chrome, I actually needed to type out an end character as well. So for example, I had to type a space, or I had to press enter, or etc., etc. If I was to put, and I'll do it with the calculator instead, if I was to put an asterisk in between these two first colons, now as soon as I type that out, I don't have to use an end character after that. So if I save this, as soon as I type out this last C, it's going to automatically run that. Okay, so as soon as I hit that last C, it automatically got rid of that text and then replaced it with it running the calculator. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing we'll go through this and have a look at a few other things. So okay, so this one is probably something that you're not going to want to use unless you have a very specific application, where if I put a question mark, and it's likely, once again, it's going to be in between these first two colons. So if I put a question mark, if the two characters, or if this is anywhere inside of a word. So this is one of the reasons why you're not going to want to do this is, so let's say if I was to use, instead of using at calc, I just used at cal, right? So anytime I would type, like if I typed out calendar, it would execute that because it's part of that Actually, that's not quite what it means. Let me see. I think this is anywhere within it. Okay, yeah. Something triggered when it's inside of another word. There's a hot string. Okay. Okay. My mistake. So with that one there, if I typed out any word that had, let's say once again I just changed this to CAL. If normally it would have to have let me see, D. So I'm not going to use the question mark. Let me get rid of that. I'll show you what it is. Okay, so let's say if I typed out D at calc and then enter, nothing happens, right? Because I lead it off with a D. But if I was to put that question mark in here, where's my question mark? There it is. If I was to put the question mark in there, save it and run it again, this time if I did the exact same thing I did before, it will execute that, or it actually replaced it back to that D and gave me my calculator. Right, so you can see why this is something that you're probably not going to need to use, or you wouldn't want to use, but I don't know what you're going to be doing with it, so that might be something that you actually want to do. Let's go through automatic. Okay, so BO. So BO, so every time now when I type out calculator, you've seen that it backspaces and gets rid of this, whatever I typed out to trigger that hot string. What it looked like to me, just at glance, is that if I put BO in the options here, now it'll leave what I type out, but still execute the other part. Okay, so it still left my hot string intact, or what I typed out to execute the hot string intact, but it still executed the program. So if that's something that you need to do, then there's the option for that. To disable it, turning the option back on, I'm not 100% clear about I don't see an example of actually turning it back on. Perhaps they have something down here. As you can see, this is not my typical style for doing this. Okay, I don't actually know how to re-enable it. Like where would I put this B? So I have the BO just like in the example that I had before, but where would I put that B? I don't know. Perhaps I don't see it. Perhaps I put it there. I don't know. Let me try. At no. do you put that damn B? Okay, I can't answer that question, unfortunately. I don't see an example of it turning it back on again. Perhaps it's in here. New options. And perhaps this one here. Huh. I'll use this. I'll check out this one here. So once it's executed, I'll come in here. Hopefully this works. So after it's run it the first time, as soon as that's done, it's going to execute this, which is going to change the option to B. I don't know. Let me see. Add calc. Okay, so it worked fine the first time. Now let me see if I run it again. Will it actually erase it this time? No, it didn't. So I don't know. I don't know what how to actually turn this off. It says to put a B, but where do you put the B? Unfortunately, I don't use hotstrings enough to ever need that, and if I did turn on the option, chances are that I would want that option to stay. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question at this time. Perhaps when I do a follow-up, I'll be able to actually answer turning it off, because use a plain B to turn backspacing on after it was previously turned off. Okay, where do you put that plain B? See, where do you... Okay, yeah, I can't... This is what I'm talking about. Sometimes the documentation isn't very clear on what they want, and I don't use hotstrings enough to have ever gone through and actually looked for these kind of answers. But case sensitive, that's quite clear that if I want, let's say there's a chance that I might actually be typing out at Chrome on a regular basis in some text field or whatever, right? What I can do instead is I can change this to my hot string to say for something like actually let me use calc. So I will change this to case sensitive. I believe that was a C, and I'll get rid of this. So now let me make sure I have that right. Is it C? Okay, yes. So now if I run this again, I need to type it out exactly how I have it in my hot string. So it'll be at C A uppercase L C. Right? So that runs the calculator. But if I was to do, if I don't have the capitalization properly, or if I don't have it the right format there, it's just going to do nothing. So this is one way that you can actually, I really wouldn't suggest doing this, but this is one way that you can use the same exact hot string for multiple different actually things that you want to do with it, right? So the first time I have an uppercase C and then everything else is lowercase. The next time I have the first two characters uppercase and then everything else lowercase, and then the next ones, and so on and so forth. So I can use this same 5 characters here for what would that be? About 20 different, somewhere around 20 different hot strings. 10, 15 different hot strings. But like I said, that's kind of a ridiculous thing to do. You're better off just writing out new hot strings. But if you want to make them upper case sensitive, you can do that. Once again, it's going to say put it to change it back to, but how do you do that? I don't know. Where do you put this CO? Once I've done that, okay, fine, I've done that. Where do I put that CO? I don't know. C1 don't conform to this option, auto replace sensitive case conforming. Okay, I think this is one thing that I went over before. So instead of this time, I'm going to, let's say, I don't know, I'm just coming up with something. No, my bad. Okay, instead of having it run a program, what I'm going to do is just use it like the way that we had done it at the beginning, where we replace it with laugh out loud. By default, what it does is, depending on how I type out that LOL, it'll determine how it's going to output the program. So here, I'll make everything lowercase. Okay. So if I was to type out LOL, we end up getting it all in all lowercase here. But if I was to type out LOL in all uppercase, it should capitalize every character in this. Oh, I saved and ran. My bad. So now if I type all uppercase, it should make every character in this string here uppercase. What did I do wrong? Okay, let's try. Okay, there we go. So it's made every single character uppercase in this case, and if you want to disable that, you can come in here and change that to don't conform to that. Next is a key delay. This is one that I actually did test out before I started this. And if I want to use a key delay in between each of the things, now this one is another one of those things that you're probably never going to need to do. But what I can do is, let's say that when I type this out, I want it to actually wait a little while before it actually sends out each of those keystrokes. To do that, I type in here K and the amount of milliseconds I want to wait. So let's wait 1 second, which is 1000 milliseconds, and then I'm going to do send event for it to actually work out that way. So it actually uses this time for I can do send play. Send play would be how long it actually holds down the key before it releases it. Send input, it would completely ignore this time here. And send event, it'll use this as the delay in between each keystroke. So the first thing it does after I type out this LOL and then my end character is it's going to delete the LOL, and then it's going to start replacing it. Well, as it's deleting it, it's going to use that key time as well. So it'll erase the first L, wait a second, erase the O, wait a second, and then it's going to start typing out the laugh out loud with a 1 second interval in between each character. So this is the kind of thing you're probably never going to use. Alright, so if I do LOL, it'll start erasing it 1 character per second and start replacing it 1 character per second. Okay. And I have no way of stopping that. Alright. Okay, so that's that option. Omit End Character. I think did I actually go over that? I think I thought I went over that. Oh, okay. Okay, so if I put an O in here, so before when I typed out LOL and if I put a space there, it ended up replacing it with laugh out loud with a space after that. If I typed out LOL plus enter, it would type out laugh out loud plus, then it would drop down to the next line. Right? If I don't want that, if I want it to, as soon as it types out laugh out loud, I want it to stop right there after the D. What I'll do is I'll put the O here so that way it does that. So I'll run it first with this. So if I type out LOL plus enter, it just types out laugh out loud and then keeps my caret right after the D. But if I get rid of the O and do it again, LOL plus enter, it'll replace it with laugh out loud and then drops me down to the next line. Okay, that's next thing. PR priority. I don't know priority of the hot string. Not really sure. Not really sure. You can look up what the priority stands for. Like I know in some things with the priority, let's say if I have two events that are about to happen at the exact same time, the one that has the higher priority will be the one that gets executed first, right? So for example, if you have timed events, if both events come up to queue at the same time, or if the one with the higher priority goes into the queue, it'll end up get bumped up to higher priority, gets executed first. So that's probably what that. I don't know exactly what why you would need to set a priority for your hot strings. There's probably a reason. You can look into that. Send the replacement text raw. Okay, very simple. If I was to do, for example, here as is, I think I'm doing this right. If I was to do backspace, let's say 10, what I assume is going to happen is that when I type out laugh out loud, it's going to replace it with laugh out. When I type LOL, it's going to replace it with laugh out loud, and then what I believe is going to happen, it's going to backspace 10 spaces. Okay. So if I type out LOL, it ended up erasing everything back down to it erased, got rid of 10 characters, or 10 backspaces, right? What if I actually want to send this as a raw, like I want to literally type out all of these characters here. I don't want it to execute that code, I just want it to, I want it to actually literally type out open French brace BS space 10, right? So what I can do there, I think it was just an R. Yeah, just an R. So I can put in here in the options an R, and now when it types out, it'll type out all of this literally. Okay, LOL, and it typed out literally all that text. It's just the same thing as you would do with normal send raw. This one is what I was talking about before, where I used the key delay. So here is the options for that. It's just setting what it's going to do. So SI is send input, send play, and send event. Resets the hots. So this looks like if I only want to use a hot string once. Let me actually type this one out, because I'm not 100% clear on what it's talking about there. And I'll use their example, 1-1. Actually, let me just copy what they have. Actually, I might as well just type out everything they have. Alright, so what happens if I type out 1-1? It types out XX. And each time I type out 1 once, even if I just type it once, it's typing out that. So now let's see what happens if I use the Z option. Do I just put it there like that? I don't know. Let's see. Alright, so if I type out 1-1. Okay, so the first time I did it without the Z there, if I typed out 1-1, it worked the way you'd expect, right? But each time after that, if I typed out just a single 1, it would still execute it again. This time, what I actually have to do is, once again, type out both 1s. So it looks like before it was keeping the last digit as the start of the new one, whereas now it needs me to completely start it over again. Okay. Hopefully that's clear. Just try it, type it out and see. Do it exactly what I just did, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Long replacements. Okay, here. If you have, let me go back to what I had before. If I have something that's really, really long, rather than me typing it out beside my hot string, what I can do is drop down a line and put it into parentheses, everything that I want to have in it. So, oh, why did I end up there? And then blah blah blah. I'm not sure if it's literally going to take these new lines. We'll find out in a second. So then you can find out whether you need to put perhaps new line characters. Okay. So I'll save that, run it. And if I was to type out LOL, it replaces everything like that, including all of my okay, so I'm not sure about this characteristic right here, what's going on with that. So let me see what happens if I was to actually move this over. Oops. Okay, so there you can see what happened when I moved everything over a tab and etc. etc. I'm not really sure why it was doing the extra indentation. So before I had everything at the same indentation, so you would think that when it dropped down to the new line, it would just tab over that one part. But what it looks like, and from what it looked like before, if I wanted the second line to be tabbed over once, I would tab it over, but then if I wanted everything else that follow all the lines after that, if I wanted them to be lined up with it, I would actually have to backspace them one tab. I don't know. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, so very peculiar behavior where if I want it to be lined up like this, I would actually have to offset this line and the lines following it. Right? Pretty weird, but as long as you know what the behavior is, you can work around it. Case sensitive. Hotstrings. Okay, we went over case sensitive hotstrings. Oh, sorry, context. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so here I can. Okay. I would have thought that I would have had to do this a little bit differently, but if they say so, I would have thought that I would have had to put down in here. Um, I would have thought that I would have had to put my condition inside of here, so I would have been like, if so and so, then I can do whatever. But apparently I don't need to do that, as long it looks like as if the hot string itself is built into my conditional, then only then it'll get executed. So let me use the example they had, because I have easy access to Notepad. Here, I'll actually just copy everything they have, because I'm a very slow typer. So here, if I only want the hot string to work for a particular program, this is the kind of thing that I would set up. And I'll go quickly in a second to the way that I thought you would have to do it, and I imagine it'll work the way that I'm anticipating, but we'll look at if when active. Okay, so this is if a window is active. Okay. Alright, so if I have any other program besides Notepad open, if I type out by the way or BTW, then it'll replace it with this string here. And I accidentally moved my cursor, by the way. Okay, so it's any other window besides Notepad. If I have Notepad open and I type it in, then it'll only appear in Notepad. So this is a way that you can make the behavior of your hot strings behave differently depending on what program you have open. And like I said, now I'll show you the way that I would have anticipated that you'd actually have to do it. So let me use my LOL again. Okay, I'll copy their code here though. Notepad. And let me get the class for this. Now I'm assuming that this is going to work the way I want it to, but I really don't know. Let me get some indentation here. This will open up in Site, and then okay. Let me actually get rid of this. Okay, it's a different. Oh, okay. Perhaps it's that. That's the thing. No. Let me see. I don't usually use else with window active, if window is active, so I'm not sure about my syntax here. Alright, so if I have Notepad open and if I type out laugh out loud, I should get it saying that it only appears in Notepad, but the else is not working properly. Let me see. Oh, and I forgot my return. Okay, so let me see. I don't know how to put an else. I'd have to actually look up how to put an else within here. Like I can put in a specific window, but I'm not quite sure on how I would go about doing an else in that case. So what I'll do is I'll take what they have here and hopefully this. No. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't think that's going to work. I really don't think that's going to work. So, let me see. If I have Notepad, and if I type out LOL, gives me that plus that. Perhaps I need... I don't know. I did all of them. Okay. So if I have in this case here, I would definitely want to set my conditions in the way that I would you know, I do know a way around this. I do actually think I have a way around this. Okay, so now if I type it out in Notepad, it'll do it. It'll say that it'll only appear in Notepad, hopefully. Okay. If I type it into Cite, it'll only say that it's replaced in Cite. And if I do it anywhere else, so let me run a program. If I type it into any other program besides Cite or Notepad, it will give me my message box, which is buried probably underneath there. Yeah, so there we go. This is how we can set up conditions so that way the hot string behaves differently in different windows without using the way that they have it in their example, which I suppose is fine, but with it this way you're going to have to rewrite your hot string over and over and over again. Whereas here I just set up my conditions, and then depending on if the conditions are met, then it'll run that, right? And with my conditions here, I can set them to be anything I want. It doesn't have to be that it's whether a window is open or not. It could be that as I execute this program over and over and over again, perhaps it increments a variable or it changes the values of different variables, and I can test for those different values, and if those values fall within a certain range or if they equal something or not, then I can execute it only when it meets those values. And that's actually one of the examples that I'm going to go into later on. But let me see what my time is at, because I know this is probably running 50 minutes. Yeah, it's going to take me quite a while to upload this, so I'm going to call it quits here. Sorry I didn't make a lot of progress, but I want to make sure that I cover these simple things in as much detail, make them clear to anyone who's just coming across these kind of ideas. I do have some really good, cool ways that you can use hotstrings planned in the follow-up tutorials that I'm going to be doing with this, but I just want to cover the basic documentation on hotstrings before I jump into those, because you're not necessarily going to use those ones that I'm going to be showing, or it's better to have the context of the earlier stuff and how to arrange your hotstrings and everything before I jump into those. So I do apologize that these are running a little bit, it ran a little bit long, but I didn't really want to bother trying to memorize all the different things that they have in here, because I don't use them enough, and chances are I would forget something. So by me going through them one at a time, at least I know that they're getting covered. But anyways, I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you guys on the next one, which will come out when it comes out. Peace.